Axl loved his role of being a father, and losing that role and losing the happiness of a family that he always wanted to create was devastating.
Axl reveals the inner torment that could have been driving his destructive patterns.
One night that Axl basically called me to come down to the studio, and I went down to the studio and he was sort of sitting on the floor with a big box of chili cheese fat burgers. He looked at me very solemn and he said, Tom, he said, I want you to get me that cover of Rolling Stone. I'm gonna out my dad.
Axl starts to unearth what for him are very disturbing memories.
Here's a guy who's the biggest rock star in the world, and he wants to take his one opportunity to be on the cover of Rolling Stone to out abuse. It was just absolutely horrific. And he goes, if I can spare one kid's life from having to live this kind of then it'll be worth it.
Axl continued to openly talk about his past.
Because it might not have happened to you, but it might have happened to the 2 or 3 people that are standing around you who got some family life that's going to come back to haunt them when they hit about the age of 25. And then you got to find your way, trying to climb your way out of what you thought was your life, but looks more in your head like a car wreck that no one told you about.
Alone and in charge of Guns N' Roses, Axl finally has what he wants, but the dark reality of his actions start to dawn.
He definitely has some kind of breakdown. You've got to wonder if it precipitated this long period where he becomes virtually a recluse. He was so distressed about not just Stephanie, but the way the band had crumbled around him, how his whole life was unraveling, and he didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I used to get these phone calls, 2, 3 in the morning, crying, and Dougie's gonna kill himself and I don't know what to do.
His manager, Doug Goldstein at the time, told me he'd have to go over to Axl's and he'd find him lying in bed with a gun in his mouth.
Yeah, sometimes he'd be laying there and with a gun in his mouth. And this is the man that he's my best friend and I love him. And I know that if I don't think quick and say the right thing, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to pull it off.
At this point in Axl's life, everything he had built had really come crumbling down. Whether it was dreams of having a family or the band, he was suicidal at this point.
With Axl in such a dark place, Duff McKagan, the bassist and the last standing original member of Guns N' Roses, also throws in the towel.
The worst part of that for Axl would have been the recognition that he'd lost control. People are leaving him, one after the other. The people on who he relies the most are walking away.
After the breakup of the original band, a deafening silence descends.
You know, it can be pretty daunting to sort of look at your life and then reflect back on, you know, you're playing stadiums, you had like the biggest rock and roll band in the world, but what is Guns N' Roses?
Axl is lost and alone.
You know, he likes to destroy something till it's almost completely irretrievably lost and damaged forever.